All right, well, welcome back, Merc Nation, to the Merc Method. I'm your host, as always, Merc. I am so glad that you are here again to listen to a new episode, Turning Anger into Kindness. So I feel like it's been a minute since the last time I did a podcast episode, and one of the reasons that that's been like that is because I was talked into doing live streaming now on TikTok, and it has actually gone very, very well. I found a lot of amazing people. Merc Nation has grown significantly, which is fantastic. We have gotten more followers for the podcast and book buyers and everything else in between. And the reason we're doing Turning Anger into Kindness was brought up in one of my lives. I actually did ask about a possible topic for the next podcast episode, and people really grasped onto this topic. So this is why I'm doing what I'm doing for this episode. So just like the title says, Turning Anger into Kindness, I wanted to talk about something that every single one of us experiences, but something we don't always know what to do with, and that's anger. And I want to start this conversation by saying something that might sound a little strange. Your anger isn't necessarily that enemy. We have been taught that anger is something we need to get rid of, something we need to suppress, something we need to apologize for, something we need to hide because we're angry. Somehow that means we're a bad person. I felt that way when I was angry all the time. All the time. I felt that I was a bad person, that people shouldn't see this side of me, that I had to apologize every time that I was angry. But what if anger isn't always the problem? What if sometimes anger is actually information? What if anger is your mind, your heart, and your spirit saying something matters here? Think about it. We usually don't get angry about things we don't care about, right? We get angry when we feel disrespected. We get angry when someone we love gets hurt. We get angry when we feel ignored. We get angry when we are disappointed. We get angry when we feel betrayed, when we feel something's unfair. We get angry when someone crosses a boundary, or when we keep giving and feel like nobody notices. And sometimes, if we are honest, we aren't even angry about what just happened. We're angry about everything that happened before it. That one little thing was just the final drop. I want to ask you a different question. What are you going to do with your anger? Because anger can destroy relationships, but anger can also create boundaries. Anger can make you say things you regret, but anger can also make you finally say, I deserve better. Anger can make you hurt somebody, but anger can also become the motivation that helps you prevent somebody else from experiencing the same pain. And maybe one of the most powerful things we can learn is that we don't always have to choose between anger and kindness. Maybe we can take the anger, understand it, process it, and transform it. That's what we're talking about today. How do you take something that feels so heavy and turn it into something that helps you instead of hurts you? How do you take anger and turn it into kindness? Not just kindness toward other people, but kindness towards yourself. Being angry does not make you a bad person. So let's start here, okay? Being angry makes you human. Now, what you do with your anger matters. There's a difference between feeling anger and using anger as permission to hurt people. Those are two completely different things. You can be angry without screaming. You can be angry without insulting somebody. You can also be angry without breaking something or without getting revenge. You can be angry without becoming the person who hurt you. That's important. Because sometimes we confuse emotional honesty with emotional destruction. We say, I'm just being real. But being real doesn't mean being reckless. You can tell somebody you're hurt without humiliating them. You can establish a boundary without disrespecting somebody. You can walk away without creating a war. You can say that wasn't okay without becoming cruel. And sometimes the strongest response isn't the loudest response. Sometimes strength sounds like, I need some time before I respond. Sometimes strength sounds like I love you, but I won't allow you to treat me that way. Sometimes strength sounds like I am angry, but I don't want to say something I'll regret. And sometimes strength sounds like nothing at all. Sometimes you simply walk away. Let's dig a little deeper, okay? Because anger is often the emotion we can see, but underneath anger, there may be another emotion. Maybe you're hurt. Maybe you're scared, disappointed. Maybe you're grieving. Maybe you're embarrassed or exhausted. You feel rejected. You feel powerless. Maybe you feel like nobody's listening to you. Anger can become the armor we put over vulnerability. It's easier sometimes to say, I'm mad, than to say, I'm hurt. It's easier to say, I don't care, than to say, I cared way more than I wanted to admit. It's easier to say, forget them, than I wish they had treated me differently. And sometimes we don't allow ourselves to acknowledge the softer emotion underneath the anger. So the next time you're angry, ask yourself, what is underneath this? Don't just ask, why am I angry? Ask, what hurt me? What disappointed me? What boundary was crossed? What did I need that I didn't receive? What am I afraid of? What am I grieving? Those questions can change everything. When I was angry, I didn't know where it was coming from. I just felt anger was anger. Someone made me angry and somebody said something, and I took it wholeheartedly and was mad at that person. But what happened was it was really something that was sitting way beneath that. And most of it was grief for me. I was angry about people that were passing and I couldn't change any of it. You got to ask yourself those questions. Why am I angry? It's not necessarily who the person you're angry at, but more the emotions that you just didn't address at the right time. Sometimes today, anger is connected to yesterday's pain. Someone says something to you today, and suddenly you're reacting with an intensity that seems bigger than the situation. You don't know why. You wonder, why did that bother me so much? Sometimes the answer is because it touched something old. Maybe you spent years feeling overlooked. Maybe you were bullied. Maybe people constantly criticized you. Maybe someone made you feel like you weren't enough. Maybe you grew up having to keep your emotions to yourself. Maybe you learned that vulnerability wasn't safe. So now when someone dismisses you, something inside of you says, not again. I am so guilty of that because I could probably check all those boxes that I just said. And suddenly you're not only responding to today's situation, you're responding to every previous moment that felt like this. That's why healing matters. Because sometimes you aren't angry because of what happened. You're angry because what happened reminded you of what happened before. And that's when we have an opportunity. Instead of asking, who can I blame? We can ask, what part of me needs attention? That's a completely different question. So here's where anger can actually become useful. Sometimes anger tells you that something needs to change, right? Maybe you've been saying yes when you mean to say no. That sounds like a lot of us. Maybe you've been allowing people to take advantage of your kindness. Maybe they've been walking all over you. Maybe you've been accepting disrespect because you were afraid of losing someone. Maybe you've been putting everybody else's needs ahead of your own. Eventually, your emotions start screaming, this is enough. And then anger can become a boundary. But here's the key, a boundary doesn't have to be cruel. You don't have to punish somebody. You don't have to seek revenge. You don't have to prove that you're stronger. You can simply decide, this is where I draw the line. That's kindness too. Because sometimes kindness towards yourself means refusing to continue participating in something that is hurting you. Self kindness isn't always bubble baths and positive affirmations. Sometimes self kindness is saying, I can't keep doing this to myself. There's going to come a time when you say, enough is enough. And one of the biggest challenges when we're angry is remembering who we want to be. Because somebody can hurt you and suddenly you want to hurt them back. Somebody disrespects you and your mind says, I'm going to show them. But ask yourself, show them what? Show them that they successfully pulled you out of your character? Show them that they can control your emotions? Show them that their behavior can determine yours. You don't have to become what hurt you. That's one of the greatest forms of freedom. Someone can be cruel to you. You don't have to become cruel. Someone can lie to you. You don't have to become dishonest. Someone can mistreat you. You don't have to mistreat somebody else. Someone can fail to recognize your value. You don't have to start believing you're worthless. Their behavior belongs to them. Your character belongs to you. I'm going to say that again. Their behavior belongs to them, and your character belongs to you. Okay? Now let's get to the heart of this episode. How do we actually turn anger into kindness? First, you got to pause. Don't react immediately if you don't have to. Give yourself room. Give yourself space. Take a breath. Walk away. Write it down. Pray. Reflect. Talk to someone you trust. Give yourself time to understand what you're feeling. Second, name the emotion. Don't just say I'm angry. Say I'm angry because I feel ignored. I feel betrayed. I feel disrespected. I feel exhausted. When you name the emotion, you start gaining power over the reaction. Third, choose the purpose. Ask, what can I do with this energy? Maybe you need to have a conversation. Maybe you need to set a boundary. Boundaries are so good. I'm working on mine. Maybe you need to leave a situation. Maybe you need to forgive. Maybe you need to help someone. Maybe you need to create something. Maybe turn pain into purpose. I've heard a lot of that lately, especially on my lives on TikTok. People talking about turning pain into purpose. And that's where anger can become kindness. Because instead of saying, I'm going to make them pay, you say, I'm going to make sure someone else doesn't have to experience what I experienced. That's transformation. We talk so much about being kind to other people, but some of us are incredibly kind to everybody except ourselves. I'm talking to you. We'll forgive everybody else. We'll understand everybody else. We'll give everybody else second chances. But when we make one mistake, we destroy ourselves so quickly. We call ourselves stupid. We call ourselves failures. We replay our mistakes. We punish ourselves for things we already regret. And sometimes the person you need to forgive isn't somebody else, it's you. Maybe you're angry with yourself for choices you made. Maybe you're angry because you stayed too long. Maybe you're angry because you trusted the wrong person or you didn't speak up. Maybe because you believe you should have known better. But please listen to this, okay? You cannot change the version of yourself who made that decision. You can only teach the version of yourself who exists today. So instead of saying, how could I have been so stupid, try, what can I learn from this? Or instead of saying, why didn't I see it? Maybe say, what can I see now that I couldn't see then? That's kindness for yourself. So what if your anger has a purpose? Sometimes anger becomes fuel. Think about people who have experienced injustice and decided to create change. People who were bullied and later became advocates. Guilty. People who experienced loss and created organizations. People who were told they weren't good enough and used that pain as motivation. Guilty. People who were rejected and decided to build something of their own. The pain didn't disappear. They transformed it. And that's an important distinction. Transformation doesn't mean pretending the pain didn't happen. It means deciding that the pain doesn't get the final word. You can say out loud, yes, that hurt me, but also I'm going to use what I learned. You can say, yes, I'm angry, and also I'm going to choose what I do with that anger. Or maybe you can say, someone disappointed me, and I refuse to let disappointment turn me into a bitter person. That is strength. I want to make this extremely clear for all of you, okay? Kindness does not mean weakness. Kindness does not mean tolerating abuse. It does not mean allowing disrespect. It does not mean staying somewhere that is damaging you. Kindness does not mean forgiving someone and giving them unlimited access to you. Sometimes kindness looks like distance. It looks like saying no. It looks like ending a relationship and protecting your peace. You can wish somebody well from far away. You can forgive someone without trusting them again. You can love someone without allowing them to continue hurting you. So let's talk about when you're angry in that moment before you react, okay? About that tiny moment, that moment between what happened and what you do next. That moment is where your power lives. Someone says something disrespectful. You feel your body tense up. Your heart starts beating faster. You get sweats. You feel that anger rising. And there is a moment. Maybe it's only 5 seconds. But inside those 5 seconds, you have a choice. You can react or you can respond. Reacting says, I feel this before I must act. Responding says, I feel this and I get to decide what happens next. Now, all this doesn't mean you don't get to be angry. I'm not saying that at all. It just means your anger doesn't get to drive the car. You can acknowledge the passenger without handing them the keys. So I ask you, what do you want your anger to build? This is where I want you to think really big now. What if your anger could build something? What if your disappointment could inspire you? What if your pain could make you more compassionate? What if being misunderstood could teach you to listen better? What if being mistreated could teach you how important respect is? What if being abandoned could teach you how important connection is? Or what if being hurt could make you more intentional about how you treat people? It doesn't make what happened to you okay by any means, but it means you don't have to let the experience be wasted. You can take the lesson without carrying the poison. That's powerful because sometimes we carry anger for years and the person we're angry with has moved on. They're living their life, they're sleeping at night. They could care less why we're so mad, and we're still carrying the emotional weight. At some point, you have to ask, how long do I want to carry this? Just remember, forgiveness isn't always about them. Forgiveness can be misunderstood. People sometimes think forgiveness means saying what happened was okay. It doesn't. Forgiveness doesn't erase accountability. It doesn't erase consequences. It doesn't require reconciliation. Sometimes forgiveness simply means I refuse to allow this experience to control the rest of my life. You don't forgive because they deserve peace. Sometimes you forgive because you deserve peace. And sometimes forgiveness is a process, not a race. You may have to forgive the same situation multiple times. You may wake up one day feeling okay and another day feeling angry again. That's human. You're a human being. Healing isn't always a straight line. Most of the time, it's not. And as I always love to talk about the ripple effect, imagine you're having a terrible day. You're frustrated, you're angry, you're overwhelmed, and then somebody does something small. They hold the door, they smile, they say, Are you okay? They let you merge into traffic, they compliment you, they simply treat you like a human being. That tiny act can change your entire day. Now imagine you do that for somebody else, and they go home and treat their family differently. Then their child treats another child differently. Then that child grows up and remembers what kindness felt like. That's the ripple effect. Kindness doesn't always have to be huge. Sometimes it's incredibly small. But small does not mean insignificant. I always tell people to pocket those little wins, right? Those little acts of kindness that people give to you, because at some point in time, you're going to get angry and you're going to want to go back to those instances where you really felt that somebody had seen you and acknowledged you by some kind of act of kindness. Because we all know that we're going to be angry at life for some reason, right? We're angry because things didn't happen the way we imagined. We're angry because we lost someone. We're angry because we worked hard and still didn't get the opportunity. We might be angry because we thought we'd be further along and we're tired of starting over. Sometimes we look around and think, why me? That question can consume you, but eventually another question may become more helpful. Where do I go from here? You don't have to pretend you're okay. You can acknowledge this isn't what I wanted, but this is where I am. Acceptance isn't approval. Acceptance is recognizing reality so you can decide what to do next. So the big question is, who are you becoming? Because eventually the anger has to become something. Maybe it becomes wisdom, or boundaries or empathy or creativity or service or purpose or advocacy or kindness. But don't waste your pain. Don't let something that hurt you become the reason you hurt someone else. Let it become the reason you understand people indifferently. Let it teach you. Let it sharpen you without making you bitter. Let it give you boundaries without taking away your compassion, and make you stronger without making you colder. Honestly, I could go on with this topic for so long because I was someone who was angry for so long because I didn't know how to flip the narrative. Okay. But before I close, I want to bring this back to you. You don't have to be kind to everyone while being cruel to yourself. You deserve your own compassion. Speak to yourself differently. Give yourself permission to grow. Stop expecting yourself to have known what you know now. Stop punishing yourself for being human. You made mistakes. You have regrets. You have moments you wish you could redo. So does everybody else. The question is, what are you going to do with what you've learned? You can use your mistakes as evidence that you're broken, or you can use them as evidence that you're growing. You decide. You can use your anger as evidence that you're damaged, or you can use it as information about what matters to you. You can use your pain to build walls, or you can use it to build bridges. It's up to you. And of course, this brings me back to something that I believe deeply in, obviously. Make every day reflect kindness. Not because every day is going to be perfect. Not because everybody is going to treat you right. And not because you're never going to get angry. You're going to get angry. I'm going to get angry. We're human. The goal isn't to become someone who never experiences anger. The goal is to become someone who knows what to do with it. So when anger comes, pause, listen, ask what it's trying to tell you, protect yourself when necessary. Set your boundaries, have the difficult conversation, walk away when you need to, forgive when you're ready. And then ask, how can I turn this pain into something positive? Maybe today that's simply being kinder to yourself. Maybe it's refusing to pass your frustration on to someone else. Maybe it's checking on a friend. Maybe it's apologizing or letting go. Maybe it's starting something when being afraid to start. Maybe it's helping someone who's going through something you've already survived. Maybe it's deciding that your story doesn't end with what happened to you. It continues with what you choose to do next. Your anger can be a warning. It can be a teacher and it can be a boundary. Or your anger can be fuel. But your anger does not have to become your identity. You can feel deeply and still love deeply. You can be hurt and still be kind. You can be disappointed and still have hope. And you can be angry and still choose peace. And maybe that's the real transformation, not pretending the anger isn't there, but taking that anger by the hand and saying, I see you. I understand why you're here. But you're not going to control me. I'm going to decide what happens next. So the next time anger shows up, don't immediately ask, how do I get rid of this? Ask, what can I create from this? What boundary can I create? What lesson can I learn? What kindness can I give? What healing can I begin? What person can I become? Because sometimes the greatest act of kindness isn't what we do for someone else. Sometimes it's what we finally decide to do for ourselves. And sometimes the greatest victory isn't getting revenge. It's becoming the person you were always meant to be despite everything that tried to make you bitter. So take that anger and understand it. Honor what it's trying to tell you. And then transform it. Turn it into compassion. Turn it into purpose and growth and boundaries and love and kindness. And most importantly, make every day reflect kindness. Just remember, okay, you don't have control of everything that happens to you, but you do have a say in what you become because of it. And that choice is powerful. Well, I want to just thank everybody for listening to the podcast episode today. You guys are absolutely amazing. I continue to see the improvement and growth of the Merc Nation over every single day and every episode, and it wouldn't be here without you guys listening. So thank you. Thank you so much for everything that you do and the great support that you give to the Merc Nation and the Merc Method. And as always, when I leave you with this. Stay grounded, stay kind to yourself, and remember, strength begins with honesty. Until next time.